Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about splitting, which is a term that we use in psychology to describe certain patterns of how you relate to the other person, and that's going to be in context of the borderline personality disorder. So if you're interested in topics as such, then keep watching. So splitting here, it will be that fluctuation between idolizing someone in a relationship or devaluating someone in a relationship. So there are only like two extremes, there's nothing in between. And that's how very often people with borderline personality disorder, they relate to people. And obviously that can be quite problematic because there's so much more happening between those two extremes. We are much more complicated than only good and bad people. So that creates a lot of relational problems for people who suffer from borderline personality disorder. So until at least perhaps we meet the expectations in terms of the relationship, until at least they feel that they're being loved, we might be really put in a position of the saint. But at the moment when there was sense, for example, that someone wants to abandon them, there was sense that maybe someone doesn't love them, instantly the person then will turn into the evil person. And the reason why they operate only on the two extremes, it might be because they really struggle with integrating the good and bad aspects of the person. So normally their opinion about someone else's is gonna be based only on the most recent interaction that they had with them. So it is almost as if they had a problem with a shorter term memory. The splitting can also be used to describe the all or nothing pattern of thinking. And people who suffer from borderline personality disorder, they actually very often they can apply that way of thinking about their day-to-day problems. So it might be that they're gonna dislike maybe their job, and instead of maybe looking for certain solutions, instead of maybe asking someone if maybe there could be some adjustments done for them to maybe feel more comfortable at work, they're not gonna do that. They might instantly think that they're gonna just quit the job. Or they can operate on the other extreme, where maybe they will go that extra mile to try to fix a problem that actually doesn't have a solution. So either way, all or nothing pattern of thinking can actually be quite unhelpful. And another example of where we can see splitting in context of borderline personality disorder, it is perhaps as well in context of how they actually look at themselves. So very often they might really strive for perfectionism, and yes, very often they can become really good at something, but whenever the slightest mistakes happen, they can really catastrophize. They can actually turn into anger towards themselves or even towards other people. And I think for someone who's in relationship with someone who struggles with borderline personality disorder, it's actually quite difficult to keep up with those really high standards and expectations in terms of, for example, unconditional love. And possibly that splitting might actually originate in very early childhood, when, for example, the person was really neglected emotionally or maybe abused. And perhaps because of that severe neglect and abuse, now someone who suffers from borderline personality disorder will have problem with trusting other people. And obviously that trust will cause issues in their relationships. So for example, when the trust issues, they come forward, then they might accuse you of not loving them, not caring for them. And that's when the person will become the evil one, the bad one. And even though the person might really try their best to prove them that they love them, that they care, it's actually impossible for them to do that, because they're gonna be always something, if not one thing, there might be something else that they will find to actually argue and say that, look, you don't love me because of this, you just you don't care because of something else. It is actually impossible for someone to fulfill those relational expectations that people with borderline personality disorder have, because those expectations that they have, they're really linked to the childhood, to the mistrust that they're holding towards perhaps the parent, or maybe the caregiver. And the other thing as well that might happen to people who suffer from borderline personality disorder is that very often they actually report feeling emptiness, and they associate perhaps some type of a shame with that emptiness, because very often they're afraid that if they will get too close to someone, the other person will actually see this emptiness in them, and therefore very often they will have like emotional distance from the person. So whenever they will feel that they're getting maybe too close to someone, that's when they will distance themselves from that person. So in order to prevent that person from seeing this emptiness, this disturbance in them. And also what is linked to that sense of emptiness is the fact that normally when we are about age 30, we have fairly stable sense of self, of who we are. And obviously that might vary for different people, and that sense of self will also evolve throughout the life. So depending on situations, depending on people, we always evolve, we always change, but there's some sense of stability of who we are, of where we belong, for example. But people who suffer from borderline personality disorder, they actually never achieve that stable sense of who they are. And what is more, they might have problem with actually having sense of who other people are. So they really struggle with integrating these different ideas that they might have about themselves or other people as well. And that's why perhaps they report the feeling of emptiness. And that's why perhaps they report as well, they feel like they really rely on other people, people's opinions regarding what they need to feel or what they need to think. And also sometimes they might really struggle when they're not in a relationship, because then the sense of emptiness it just becomes overwhelming for them. So perhaps when they're in any relationship, they almost living off someone else's emotions, and that's why perhaps very often they make these very impulsive and panic efforts in order to prevent maybe the partner from leaving them. So yeah, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe, and if you have any comments or any questions, then just please leave them in a comment section. Thank you. Bye.